Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. On today's episode, we're going to be working on my 67 F100 again. Now in the past videos on this truck, we've got the engine running after setting for 30 plus years. The last video on this truck, we did the floor pans. Those turned out great. Couldn't be happy with that. With all that being said, and how good the floor pans turned out on this truck, this project really has started the snowball. So I think I'm going to start calling this thing Project Snowball, just because this thing has gone from just quick, get it running and send it down the road kind of a project, to now we're actually going to turn it into a pretty decent little truck. I've been doing some work with it off camera, but the main focus on this episode is going to be getting it on the road. Since we've got the engine running, I've driven it around the shop with no brakes. That doesn't really count. We're actually going to get this thing on the road and running and driving as it should. Main thing is the brakes. Getting all the brakes working. We're going to get this thing up in the air. I'm going to do stuff like the shocks and check all the fluids and the diffs and stuff like that. Just general maintenance items to really get this thing back on the road and running and driving as it should. So without further ado, let's dig into it and get this thing back on the road after 30 plus years. All right, guys, like I said, I've been doing a little bit of work on this thing off camera. Not much, just doing a little bit here and there and trying to get you guys caught up just a little bit. That doesn't go there. Repainted the air cleaner. The old one was pretty rusty and grimy and got some new decals on it. I kind of like the way it looks with a fresh new air cleaner. I was kind of worried it was going to look a little bit too nice and new with the old grimy engine bay here, but I think it dresses it up pretty well. Also over here, I've been working on the brakes because, like I said, main thing that's going to be keeping this thing from being on the road is the brakes. So I wanted to work on the brakes. Now the master cylinder has been a ordeal, to say the least, because 67, as you know, 67s, there's a lot of 1 year only stuff, and the master cylinder is no different. It is a 1 year only master cylinder with a 1 year only pedal box assembly, and finding the right combination of everything to get that to work has been kind of a problem. Now, this master cylinder is correct for a 67 when you look up for 67, and this is the only one available. In this truck being manual brakes, it requires a push rod to go from the master to the pedal assembly, and everywhere I've looked for 67 master cylinders like this one, they don't come with a push rod. Now, when I got this one in, I didn't have the correct push rod length to make it all work. I had either too long or too short. So trying to make all that work. I'm guessing this is supposed to be for a vacuum booster setup since it doesn't come with a push rod. And I don't know. But here we have, this is the 67 pedal assembly. And these are 1 year only because the length here is different. On a 68 and up, the pivot point is further up here. And this one is the original out of this truck. And the reason I took it out is this, if you can see that right there. It just had a little bit of play in it, and the push rod deal was causing all kinds of problems. So what I ended up doing was I changed out the pedal assembly for a 68 6 and up pedal assembly. So this would be like for a 68 to 72. So I changed it out to the newer pedal assembly, and I found a combination of push rods that work with that pedal assembly. So all that sorted out, I have it all hooked up in here. So it's all hooked up and functioning. Another thing I had to do when I had this box out was the pedal assembly out was the clutch rod seal. And this is one I had in stock here, just had one left over, and I thought it would be correct. But of course, 67s being 1 year only, that is wrong as well. So I have a correct 67 clutch rod seal coming. So just kind of stuff like that is really annoying when you're working on 67s, because you think you're making progress, and you find some little one-off thing you got to buy for the 67 and waiting for more parts. So that's what we're doing. We're kind of waiting for parts to finish off the interior here. But while I had all the pedal box or the pedal assembly out, I thought, let's go ahead and paint the steering column and make it look pretty nice, since the old one was pretty rusty and grimy, and the shift collar was all blown out. You can see that there, the 3-speed. So I got a new shift collar, got it all painted the shift arm, and got it all working back again. So our 3-speed shifter is working. And also got a new steering wheel with new horn button to dress it up here. We're waiting on a new turn signal switch, but that new steering wheel, new painted steering column is going to look really nice in here once I get everything else all cleaned up, and a new dash pad. Speaking of new dash pad, I wanted to show you guys all the parts I got from the guys over at Complete Performance. I'm going to have all the links of the stuff I'm using, like this dash pad, and the stuff that they have on their website linked in the description below. So if you want to check those out, there'll be a direct link to those guys there and check out these parts. But I just want to show you some of the stuff I got. You know, this is kind of the snowball thing. You just keep on buying parts and it keeps adding up and adding up. But things like these hood emblems look really, really nice. That's going to look great on the side of the hood there. The originals are pretty faded, and the red is completely gone. So I thought that this right here is going to really dress up the hood. These are pretty expensive, but it is a nice touch, I think. We also have stuff like, you know, the hose for the filler neck and the grommet for the filler neck. And I got new gaskets for the windshield and rear window and stuff like that. There's shocks and heater hoses down in there. Got some decals, a window washer hose kit, a new lens for the cab light, and a new black dash pad. So this is a new reproduction dash pad, not just a cover. We'll be putting that in later. And another thing I got, I don't think we're going to be doing on this episode, but is a clear coat kit from the guys at Poppy's Patina. I got a wipe on clear coat kit. I'm going to try that on this truck and see how that turns out. We'll probably do a standalone video on that. But the main thing on this thing, on this video, is get this thing, the brakes working, so we can drive this thing and maybe mount the bed and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to get this thing up on the lift, and we're going to take a peek at those brakes and see what we're going to find underneath them. All right, I got updates. I was hoping this was going to be just a simple brake job, but it is quickly turning into a lot more than that. Start up here. These brakes don't look too bad. They have not been working for a very long time, but they don't look too bad. The liners are actually in pretty good shape. You could probably reuse those after cleanup. We'll see what we end up with. I do have new wheel cylinders for sure and new hoses, but here we have problem. Our kingpin is shot, just really shot. You can replace these. They're kind of a pain to deal with, I think. And I have a bunch of parts, so I might be throwing a whole new I-beam assembly because I'm replacing the radius arm bushings and everything as well. So it's kind of like I have the parts, just throw a good one in there rather than try to deal with getting that kingpin replaced. This side is good. It's pretty tight. Brakes are about the same on this side as that side. But things start going downhill when you get down here to the rear. The old feller that was driving this thing sure got the good out of the rear brakes, I think. This one is completely gone. Both sides are completely gone. Drum is junk. It's all pitted and rusted up. Parts down in it from the self-adjuster fell out of the bottom here. The liners are actually froze in this thing. So pretty much all the rear brakes are junk. The bearing on this side doesn't sound too great. But over here on this side, I already have it out, but you can see some of my bearings here on the floor. The bearing on this side was really bad. It was actually locked up and couldn't get it to turn. I was thinking there was something wrong with the center section, the third member there, because it had a tight spot in it. And generally, like if you have rusty spot on the ring gear or something, you'll have a tight spot. But it turned out it was this bearing. It went to pieces. So we're going to be putting bearings in it, and definitely rear brakes. These liners still have a little bit of material left on them, but you know, they're shot basically. And definitely the bearing is shot because it's all on the floor. So I'm going to go out to one of my parts frames, my F100 frames. I have a good rear end and a good front end on that. I'm going to pull parts off the rear end. I'm probably not going to swap it out. I was thinking about swapping the whole thing out when I thought the third member was bad, but since the third member is good, we're going to leave that there. We're going to put bearings in it and brakes and try to get as many parts as I can off that other frame, since it looks like the brakes were recently done on it. So we'll see what we get out of it before I start ordering parts. But up here on the front end, I think we're going to clean up. We might change this I-beam assembly. We're going to put new raised arm bushings in it, new hoses, and shocks and that kind of stuff, and see if we can get this thing back to where we can put it back on the ground and get on moving on with the rest of the stuff. All right, guys, we got a little further along. I have the I-beam and radius arm assembly out of my donor truck right here. These are in really good shape, so I'm going to use at least the passenger side one. The driver's side one on this one is decent shape, so I guess why waste the time replacing it. But I have this one out. It fought me a little bit. Had to use a little bit of heat to get the nut off the radius arm there, but got it out, and you can really see the loose kingpin here once you get it out and disconnected from the tie rod. But got this stuff out. I'm just going to throw this assembly in, and I'm going to use the best brake parts out of that one. I think this one actually has newer brake parts in it. You can see it has a newer hose, but I'll still replace the hose with the new ones I got. I got new brake stuff coming for the rear end, and I got new seals, and I also yanked the axles out of that axle that front I-beam came from. It had really good bearings and stuff in it, so I'm just going to use those axles. But I had to use a torch to get the old bearing race out of this, and screwed up my seal, but I wanted to put new seals in it anyway, and all new hardware and shoes and liners and everything for the rear, because these are just trashed. I got to pull the third member out because it's leaking, and then basically just stuff like the shocks and all the hard lines, or the soft lines for the brakes and wheel cylinders and all that stuff are going to be all new. So just going to get yanking, going to throw this in there with some new radius arm bushings. I got to put new radius arm bushings on the other side, and we're well on our way to having this thing back on the ground. So I'm going to get after that stuff. We'll see what we get done. All right, guys, well, I've been busy. I got the front end put back together and a few other odds and end things all finished up on this truck while it's on the lift. Mainly, we have our new wheels and tires. If you notice, the old wheels and tires are not on the truck. I painted up some actually correct wheels with the correct hubcap position here. Painted them the Bell Telephone green and put some old Bias Plies tires on it. We got some highway tread tires in the front and some pizza cutter traction tires in the back. I think they look great with that green paint matching the truck. I think it's going to look great. But the whole reason for changing the wheels was I wanted to be able to run the correct hubcaps. I haven't snapped them on there yet because the paint is still a little green. It'll do a lot more damage to the wheel with the paint green. But yeah, with the hubcap on there, that thing's going to look great once you get the thing off the lift. But I've also got everything else finished up under here that I wanted to take care of. We got the brakes all sorted out. We have new wheel cylinders and lines up front, and made sure everything was working properly. And we have all new brakes in the back because they were all just trashed. We have new liners, hardware, self-adjusters. You know, we have new wheel cylinders. We got a new hose there. We got new shocks. And I also had the third member out to reseal it, so I went ahead and threw some paint on it while it was out. I didn't rebuild it, but just threw some paint on it, gave it the old Craigslist rebuild. New shocks. I got the exhaust system kind of figured out. We just have a little turn down there with a little muffler. That'll be good enough for this rig. We have new radius arm bushings. We have that new axle put in for that one side that was wore out. New shocks up front as well. Everything's serviced. I serviced the transmission, and I put new fluid in the rear end, obviously. So, greased our drive shaft. Everything seems to be in pretty good shape as far as all that stuff goes. So, with all that being said, I got to bleed the brake still. And I think I'm going to take advantage of it while it's on the lift and get the coolant out of it, because I have to change the radiator hoses. I got new radiator hoses. I got a new belt, and got new heater hoses. So I'm going to do that once I drain the coolant out of it. And just going to do that while it's on the lift, while it's easy. But I got to get the get the brakes bled and put the interior back together so we can drive the thing yet. And we also have to do something about the bed. I could crawl in here since we have everything off. And we have no floor on the bed. I had a piece right here. I have a piece of 1x2 box tubing. I think that's what I'm going to use to mount the bed. I'm going to get rid of these cross members because they're all bent up and twisted, and they're actually a little bit high for this bed mounting on this frame. And this, with this box tubing, I can mount it lower. So anyway, we're going to be working on that later. I'll probably just yank the bed off of it so I can drive the thing around the yard and test the brakes and shift through the gears, make sure the clutch is working, that kind of stuff, because I haven't even done all that yet. I've just crawled around in first gear basically because we didn't have any brakes. So I want to see if we can get some brakes on this thing, and then we'll figure out and get it off the lift and see if we can drive around a little bit. All right, guys, we got the truck off the lift, but before we do any kind of driving on this thing, we got to have a place to sit. So that's where this comes in over here. Now, these seats were actually gray originally. They came out of my 67 crew cab, the yellow one, if you've seen that on the channel previously. And I'm not really keen on the gray. It just didn't really fit the look of the trucks. You know, it's not original looking. So I went with a black. I did a color coat, sim color coat stuff on it to change the color. This is what I use, just satin black. This stuff I've used on the past, really, and it works really good. I use it on my dash pads and stuff to change colors. And obviously a lot of prep on this, a lot of cleaning. The biggest thing is to do cleaning and not skimp on the cleaning and get this stuff to stick really well. And it turned out really nice. So this is the satin black. We did the bottom and the top here, and painted the, what do you call these? The pivot arms. And it turned out really nice. So I got to get this seat in the truck. But before we do that, we have to do the steering column so we can steer. And before we do that, we need to do all these other little stuff in the interior. And then it kind of like, well, you might as well just finish the interior out before we drive it. So that's what I'm working on now. Wanted to show you guys this in here. So before we put the steering wheel on, we got to put a new turn signal switch in. So that's what I'm working on right now. I have the wires going through the steering column. And I used to do this all in one bundle, and it was a big pain. I fished TIG wire down through the column. There's a channel that it goes down the column, and it comes out right here at the bottom if you've never done these before. And I used to tape them all together and do it all in one go, and it was really hard to, you just fought it the entire time. And I found that actually doing it one by one is easier, and you just stick them through one by one and get them to pull out down through here. And once you do that, you take your plug and you pull the pins out, these things right here, and they already have the pins on the wires, and you put them back in. Just make sure you put them in the right spots. That's the biggest thing. But we're gonna get this thing put in here. I also have the new clutch rod. I thought I grabbed it. All right, found it. So here's the 67 clutch rod gasket, and we have the later style here, the 68. So this one has these little metal tabs you bend over to put it on the floor instead of the screws like this one. So I'm gonna get those changed out, and then yeah, we'll be rocking on our way to getting this interior put back together. All right, wanted to show you guys how I'm doing this here so you can kind of see. Hopefully you guys can tell what I'm doing, but obviously there's a little pass-through window up here that you go through, and you have to get through the shift collar into the actual column. It'll make sense when you look at it. There it goes. And then there's just a little tube down there that it goes through. And then sometimes it gets hung up down here. and there it is. So just do that to all the wires. Obviously it gets trickier the fuller your column gets. This is the horn wire. And then once they're all together as a unit, then I pull everything out to get the blinker switch pulled up into the column where it goes. And the blinker switch did work on this truck, the original, but one of the tabs was broke off, the cancellation tabs. So I went ahead and replaced it since we had it out. It's nice to have that cancellation feature so you don't drive down the road with your blinker on. So here you can see I'm having a little bit more trouble with this one. Sometimes you just got to pull it back out and find a different path and see if you can get it to poke back through at the bottom. There, it was hanging up. There it is. Come on. There, we got it. So yeah, it definitely gets more difficult as you get a few more wires in there. We have 2 to go. I'm gonna get these things knocked out, get this switch put back in there, and get the clutch rod gasket in here, and then we're gonna see how far we can take this thing. If I find something I want to show you guys, I'll turn the camera back on and show you guys, but otherwise we're just kind of throwing stuff in like the floor mat and all that kind of stuff. Well, we'll see what it looks like when we get done and show you guys. All right, well, I have all the hoses. I have new heater hoses and radiator hoses and new belt installed. So all of this, I think, is all taken care of unless I find anything else after we do our test drive, if we find any other mechanical problems. But I think everything 100% is mechanical on this truck, or mechanically taken care of on this truck. Like I said, so far, we might find some more, obviously, because this thing hasn't been driven in so long. But hopefully, majority of it's taken care of. And been very busy on the interior as well. Want to get you guys caught up. I got the seat thrown in here. It turned out really nice with that color coat, changing the color on the seat. It turned out really nice. And I have the new floor mat installed. Like I said, I have the blinker switch, and I put the steering wheel on. Now, a tip when you're doing this, anytime you've had the steering wheel off, you may think you have the wheels perfectly straight and you get the steering wheel on straight, and then you go drive the thing and it's going to be like, slightly off one way or the other. The best thing to do is just put it on loosely. What I have it right now, just kind of, I didn't hammer it down and tighten it up real tight. You can take it out and drive it and get it straight, and then you'll know if you need to turn it one way or the other, and then you can just pop the horn button off, and then hopefully you take the nut off and the steering wheel will just pop out and you won't have to pull it off, and then you can change it really quick. And once you are confirmed that you're got the steering wheel on straight, then you can tighten it up for the final torque. But I got the wires all put in for the blinker. I still have to stow them up here, but I was waiting until I got all that done and check the blinkers. Everything works there. I haven't got the horn to work, but I think we need a new horn relay because it's not clicking when you hit the horn. So I'll have to get one of those. I couldn't find one. I thought I had one here, but I guess I don't have one. Got new pedal pads on the pedal, stuff like that. Getting pretty close in here. Now, I did take the dash pad out, and I have a new black one to put in, but I'm not putting it in until we get the windshield replaced. I gotta have a guy come out and put a windshield in the thing. And I also have the spotlight pulled out, because we have our spotlight here to get the dash pad out. So I'll be putting that in after we get our new dash pad in. Another thing I've been tinkering with is the radio delete plate. Originally, this thing would have these plastic tabs in the back, and there'd be like a little sheet metal nut that would screw in the back to hold it in place. Those were broke off, and this was in the glove box, and I epoxied some 1/4-inch bolts in that, and we'll put that in there with some nuts, if I can get it to line up. So it'll look like that, but we'll do that after we put the dash pad on, because you got to get in here and get the nuts to hold the dash pad on. So it's kind of a lot of that kind of stuff. And I've had some guys ask about this in the past, because they said that their truck had a body color radio delete plate. Well, since this truck is a special paint code, this isn't a factory or like a normal paint code, it's special paint fleet color. They did these in black. So anytime you have a special paint truck, they're in black, because they didn't make them in all the fleet colors, basically. So anyway, yeah, we're moving right along with this interior install. I think we're going to clean up the gauge cluster, and I'll probably throw it in here before we do our test drive, so I can monitor everything and make sure everything's working. So we're going to go clean up that gauge cluster, and then we'll see if we can pull this thing out of the shop and take it for a spin around the, drive around a little bit. All right, guys, we'll have our gauge cluster out of the truck here. I'm going to do a little bit to dress this thing up. Not a whole lot. We're not going to like rebuild the whole thing and everything. It all works and functions, so we're basically just going to do cleaning it up. I'm going to, I got the paint here for the dials. I'm going to repaint the dials so they look a little better. We'll see how that turns out. And then I'll see how ambitious I am if I want to repaint the orange part on the dial from 70 to 100. I may do that, may not. I've done it in the past, and it's kind of a real pain to do, but the dials are a lot easier. But we'll see how far along we get when we get in there. Another thing I'm going to do that's really going to dress this up, and like any of you guys if you guys have trucks and your gauge cluster is kind of like this one where it looks a little grimy and stuff, a new lens will really dress it up, because once you take the old lens off, it'll be really clean and crisp underneath that, and you'll be really surprised. So I got one of these from the guys at Complete Performance. There's the part number there if you're interested in it. And this, we're going to replace the lens there, and it's just going to make this thing look brand new almost. We're also just going to clean the bezel. I'm not going to repaint it or anything, just going to clean it up. And we'll see how good this thing looks when we get all done. All right, guys, here we go. Finished product. I thought it turned out really nice. I did end up painting the little orange strip here for the 70 to 100 section. It looked really faded whenever I got done with painting the needles there, and it just really cleans up nice. Like I said, a new lens really does the majority of the work here, because the old lens is faded and kind of hazy. If you can see there, as much as you clean it, you could probably polish that out, but you can just buy a new lens and it does the same thing, and it's really nice and clean and crisp. Cleaned up the outside bezel. It cleaned up really nice. It does have imperfections, but that's good enough for this truck because the whole truck has imperfections. So we're going to get this thing thrown in there and see if we can continue on with the interior. I'm also going to put the headliner in just because I'm ready to do it. And it's something we can do up here and not get in the way of anything else we have to do. So I wanted to show you guys this. I got this headliner from the guys over at Complete Performance. I'll have this actual product. I think they have it on their website. I'll have it linked down below in the description to a link to their website. This is I like using this. It's not an exact replica of the originals, but it is very close. This is the off-white color. So we'll be putting that headliner in. And since I had everything out, I went ahead and painted the trim. I'm trying out some new paint. I think it turned out pretty nice as far as matching the original. So here's the headliner trim. We'll see how it looks when we get it in the truck. But this is what I'm using here. It's just a Rust-Oleum, and it's satin, and it is shell white. I was kind of worried when I got the paint, because you look at the cap, and you think, man, that's pretty yellow. But I guess it's pretty close. I thought it was going to be a little too off-white, but really, I think once you get it on the trim there, I think it looks pretty good. So we're going to get this stuff installed and see how it turns out, and then we'll throw the glaze cluster in and see if we can take this thing out for a spin. All right, guys, well, I have the headliner installed. I think it turned out pretty nice. I was kind of worried about the color on this. It looked a little gray, but you get some light on it, and it actually looks pretty close. I think it is good enough. And I have the instrument cluster installed. There you can see that. So this thing is pretty much ready to go take for a test drive. I'm going to pull it out and get some pictures outside with the bed on it, and then I'm going to pull it back inside and yank the bed off because it's not attached, so I don't want to have it bouncing around while we're test driving. And yeah, we'll see if we can get this thing going. All right, guys, well, I pulled the truck out of the shop to take some pictures of it before I pull the bed off. I want to pull the bed off before we drive it because it's not attached. And I noticed something as I was pulling it out of the shop. Man, this thing feels really stiff on the front end. And if you noticed on this side, we have nice suspension travel. I don't know if you can tell that, but we're moving. And then you come over here, and it's solid. Like, there's no give. The only give is in the tire. So we have to figure that out. I'm not sure what's going on. I can pick up on it, and you hear it banging on something. So we're going to get under here. Let me get a light, and we'll get under here and see what's going on. All right, up under the truck here. Let's see what's going on. I'm kind of baffled as to what this could be. I'm thinking maybe the shock is bottoming out or something. Huh. I'm going to set you guys up so I can investigate, because I have no idea what this is. Found it. It's on the other side, though. When I put the radius arm, can I find it in the video? Where's my hand? There's my hand. Okay, when I put the bolt for the radius arm in here, I put it the other way because it was easier to get the impact in, and it is hitting the other side I-beam right there. So that's my fault. I'll have to spin that bolt around. So I'm gonna get that done, and then we'll take it for a test drive. All right, guys, well, I got it on the road. I did fix that bolt. I just spun it around. It was awful easy. Just spun that bolt around in the right direction, and now we have working suspension. Now, this thing is a little bit rough because we don't have a bed on the back, so the back end is basically just locked solid because there's zero weight on the back end, and we have lots of rattles and stuff in here we have to take care of. We don't have any door seals, and I don't have window felts in for the windows yet, so there's lots of rattles and dings. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay when we drive this thing, but wanted to start off by saying that, so I apologize for all the noise. Let's go take this thing for a drive. Now it's kind of a learning curve to drive this thing because the rattles and bangs inside the cab are so loud you can barely hear the engine. But I think I got it down a little bit, you know, kind of learning the gear ratios and where to shift and stuff. The old 240 is running pretty good. There's not a lot of power at hand, but it has enough to get the job done. You still have lots of stuff, like this mirror here is moving on me, all this little stuff. It's going to take a lot to get all that sorted out. So we definitely are not 100% driving yet. For one, we don't have a bed, and we're just kind of got little stuff to take care of here and there. It's going to take a lot of little tinkering to get this thing 100%. But I guess we qualify as this is on the road if we count our little dirt roads we have out here. Definitely haven't taken it on the highway or anything. But it is back on the road and driving, and I'm shifting through the gears. The transmission seems to work pretty good. And the back end is very lively because there's no weight back there. You can kick the back end out if you want to have a little fun. Our third gear, we're lugging it. We're probably going about 25, so it's lugging pretty good, which is usually kind of where I judge how well an engine's running, or how well your tune-up is, basically. If your tune-up's not very good, they don't like to lug. They'll spit and pop and sputter and stuff like that. But yeah, we got this thing on the road after 30 plus years and running good. I did do a little bit of tuning on the carburetor before we took it out for a drive, just kind of setting the idle and that kind of stuff. The biggest thing I want to take care of is all these rattles in here. It's really annoying to drive, especially when you get on a rough section of road. I'm sure if we were on pavement it'd be a whole different story, but it is what it is. Door seals alone is going to help a lot, because these doors are just sitting here rattling with no seals on the latch, basically. So I think that's what we're going to work on this thing next. I need to get that bed worked on so I can get the bed mounted up. And I also need to put the door seals in. I need to rebuild everything on the windows, all the felts for the window track. I want to redo the wing windows. I'm even losing my camera there. And I think once we get the bed on the thing, it's going to help the ride out a lot, get some weight on the back end there. But we did get it back on the road. That was the accomplishment, or the goal for this video, so I think we accomplished our goal. That thing back pulled in here for the shop, so maybe you guys can hear me a little better. But I have been thinking about the future with this truck on the channel, and what I'm planning on doing with it, and I think we're going to take a little bit of a break from it, because it's, like I said in the beginning of this video, it's really snowballed, and it's taking away from my other projects that are probably a little bit more important, like my 67 crew cab. I want to get going on the body work on that truck before winter gets here and it gets too cold. I want to get that thing in high build, at least high build primer, so I can start blocking it out. And so I think we're going to take a break on this thing and maybe start working on that 67 crew cab, and we'll come back to this at a later date and do the bed and all the little stuff and get this thing finished up and you know, 100% basically. So if you guys want to see that, give me a subscribe so you can see that. Give me a like if you like this Southwestern bell truck and how it's turning out. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks so much for watching, guys.